There's a lot that has already happened here, and I want us to take it from there, with Lindiwe here. But you at home, remember that we go into this one with you still on the line as well on 0861 987 000. Lindiwe, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Katlego. Thank you for having me this morning.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for giving us your time, Lindiwe. There's a lot that came out of the weekend papers. There's a lot that is already at play as we speak right now. A lot of people just waiting with anticipation in terms of what this trip is going to come about. This, visit by the United States or by the president, our president into the United States. A lot of people saying there's a lot that is riding on this one, looking at, the relations that are already strained between the two nations.
Of course, Katlego, I think what really is important from this trip is that we want to see key things that stems from this conversation between our president and President Donald Trump. We know that the president will be accompanied by 4 ministers, which is Ronald Lamula, Kombutso Nchaveni, as well as John Steenhuisen, as well as Pakstow. These are some of the ministers that will be accompanying President Ramaphosa for this trip. We know that this one is one that is very important, where we have to highlight the strained democratic relations between South Africa and the USA. And some of these things that we would want to see being highlighted is under this theme that Donald Trump has said that making America great again. This was his campaign. And what we have seen is that the U.S. consistently acts on in self-interest and satisfies its economic and political interests. But in this case, what we are trying to see is what Cyril Ramaphosa is trying to have a conversation with President Donald Trump as to what we want to achieve in terms of our trade as well as the tariffs that have been coming up.
Also, when you look at everything else that has played itself out here, Lindiwe, one would ask themselves to say, what is it that, we go into this meeting holding here, the strategy that we'll need to take here, looking at the fact that here there's been a staunch, take by the United States. Donald Trump, even last week, he was repeating this take around genocide, white genocide. We saw him moving to give refugee status to those Afrikaners here, solidifying the misinformation that we've seen the country move to say that there is disinformation, misinformation peddled by certain groups like your AfriForum. And one was asking themselves to say, how different then do we take our message there, looking at all of these things that have already played themselves out? I mean, there was even a phone call between Ramaphosa and Donald Trump.
Most definitely. When you touch on what has been happening, we know that South Africa, USA is the largest partner in terms of trade. So what we're looking into this conversation, we are looking into Ramaphosa trying to have a balance between our exports. That is number one. Because, however, the country is experiencing a lot of trade relationships with the U.S. And we know that I can touch on the AGOA based on that. And the U.S. has threatened to revoke South Africa's preferential access to the U.S. market. And this will definitely be a big field in terms of South Africa, in terms of our tariffs. And when you mention what has been happening with the genocide matter, we know that Donald Trump has been touching on the genocide that has been going on. And we know for sure that this is not what's been happening. What is put out in the media in terms of what Donald Trump is saying is truly what's not happening. The act itself does not imply that the South African government wants to expropriate land and bring it back to black people without having to compensate the white people in our country.
Yeah, it also goes there, right? To say that, for instance, earlier on, George was talking about the issues of the media here. One of the things that he's punted on and he stood on for a while would be that we are not reporting these issues. We're not talking about these issues, meaning that, again, is implying that there's no media freedom in South Africa. Others saying that we need to, again, maybe open our books here around the laws in terms of our international relations, how we are approaching our foreign policy. But at the same time, amid foreign policy, there are those domestic policies like your land expropriation policy that, would often be punted here. There are issues around, what people would call our, equality clauses in terms of some of the policies that we've put forward here, where a lot of people saying most of them would come through to do and come about with redress, but it doesn't look like these are the issues that the United States has taken to. Also, when you look at where we find ourselves now, the ICJ matter, it is a matter that is still active as we speak right now. Others even implying to say that it's going to be somewhat of a bargain here between the two countries, whereby the United States can come through to say withdraw that matter with the ICJ where Israel is concerned, and then we can talk, and then we can try salvage AGOA, for instance, here, and then we'll have to more or less open our books to say, but we are a sovereign country. What decisions that we take and the likes and our foreign policies, they have nothing to do with you as the United States and our trade deals. Do you see it getting there where they would bargain, but again, where we'll have to put a re-emphasis on our policies and our laws here, putting the Constitution on the table in terms of our approaches?
Most definitely. I think what is important here is to have a strategic and critical conversation. Because as you've touched on the International Court of Justice, we know where we took a stance in terms of our issues relating to international justice. And we know that it has been a conflict between Israel and Palestine, and our country supported Palestine, and it has called for Israel to be held accountable for these actions. So, and I think because of what we have gained with the ICJ, it truly shows that our country has strong relations and is able to negotiate. And I think in this matter, in terms of the trade, tariffs, and all of that, I feel like we stand a good chance with having that conversation. But we need to be mindful of such things that may come up, that this genocide that is happening and all of that. But I believe that Cyril Ramaphosa is one president that is able to think strategically, and I'm not really saying that I support the ANC, but I'm just speaking in terms of how highly he has shown an interest in matters that relate to international relations.
Yeah, no, there's a lot really that one can expect to come out of this meeting, but otherwise a lot of people saying there's a lot that is riding on where we find ourselves here. The relations have really been strained here, hence we find ourselves navigating that 90-day pause. I want us to go to the lines. We'll come back and talk about these tariffs as well, and how we can salvage around the tariffs, because we've seen countries like China retaliate, others even talking about where then we find Africa in this, game of tariffs or whatever the war that is playing itself out, as we see the European Union, for instance, the bloc uniting and standing together to have a uniform kind of a response here. Let's go to Rustenburg. That's where we find Rolex, who's calling in, who wants to weigh in on what we're discussing this morning with Lindiwe. Rolex, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Katlego and Lindiwe and the listeners there, my brother.
Sure.
Yeah, before I touch on my point, I just want to ask you, have you ever imagined or asked yourself a question if Donald Trump would actually open up his welcoming of South African migrants to blacks as well? Do you know how many people would leave this country?
You reckon it is we are there in terms of some of the developments that would push people there, or whether black or white? You reckon if he does then open it up to everybody, we'll be surprised?
Let me tell you, my brother, we have reached that stage in this country right now that can become economic migrants. Let me tell you, if doors would open to us in other countries as blacks, the same way doors have opened to whites into America, let me tell you, there's nothing for us South Africans, to be very honest. It's just that maybe some people, they are taking this as a joke. I hear George is thinking this is a joke. This is not a joke, Katlego. This is a very serious matter. I'm telling you, our African brothers who have been through this situation, my brother, they can explain this much better than us, how it started in their countries that led them to be here. It is the same thing that made them leave their countries to be here. And we are still thinking that we are in heaven. No, my brother, we are in a very serious challenge right now. And let me tell you, I hear people saying, no, if America increases their tariffs, yeah, we can also do the same thing. It's lack of information, it's lack of understanding. People need to understand that without economics, you can't have laws, you can't have politics. So economics is a big brother than all of these things. That is why that is why most people would also complain that justice is for those who have money, right? Which means they can override the laws. Those who have money, because
you can influence.
The laws, even the magistrates, they listen to a person who's got money, who's bringing top lawyers. If you are just coming and you don't have a lawyer, I mean, come on, your story is not going to be bought. Let's be very honest right now. Even Lindiwe is listening right now. Do you think there's anything that South Africa produces to America that America cannot find anywhere else in the world, out of the countries that they've got relationships with? Do you want to tell me that the potatoes that we are exporting to America, you want to tell me that America cannot find potatoes anywhere else? You want to tell me that America cannot find platinum anywhere else in the world? From those that they've got relationships with. Not us here in South Africa thinking that you can hold American to ransom. We are nothing. We are very far away from being a superpower. We don't control anything, my brother. That's the reason why even Ramaphosa knows himself that, I mean, Donald Trump would say, tell me, do you think we've got time to give money to South Africa and then the next thing half of your country is unemployed? And you think we must have a relationship with you while you are busy grooming criminals? Because the more we are going to suffer. I'm telling you, my brother, the more it's going to
But how then do we, with all of these things that you've mentioned, Rolex, in mind, how do we then see this meeting playing itself out? It's not then true as well that America doesn't need us. It does need us as South Africa. Hence, you see, whoever and however he also approaches this meeting, he approaches with that in mind, to say that out of all the countries on the continent, you do find South Africa described as that gateway into some of these markets on the continent. So even if you say that you would maybe want to say you would not want to get potatoes from South Africa and get them elsewhere on the continent, you would still need South Africa as somewhat of a gateway that would give you that access to some of these markets on the continent. But with all of these things in mind, then, Rolex, how do we see the president approaching this meeting and us being able to salvage whatever would be salvaged here, looking at the fact that there is this AGOA, the preferential access to these markets, that is on the line as we speak right now. We are to hand over this G20 presidency to the United States. That is something that is being spoken of. Even when he said it last week, when he tweeted Donald Trump, he said that he wants to talk about all of these things that would pertain the G20. At the same time, there's this issue of the misinformation misinformation and the disinformation around the white genocide. This is something that we've also had the government even going on to say that there's no evidence that speaks to that. So as we have all of these things in mind and our sovereignty as a country, how do we see the president going into this meeting? A lot of people also worried that he might not even get an audience, as much as we saw Zelensky not getting an audience with Donald Trump, or a positive audience that is.
Look, Katlego, firstly, I think we must disabuse ourselves from thinking that America needs us. We need them more than they need. They need us. And I can tell you this, I hear people say, no, there's no genocide here. Look, for a white person out of those 49, if they can come and tell you, my brother, I had a land, people just invaded my land because they had Julius Malema saying, take any land. And they went there and they took that portion of the land. And the government was not interested in paying the amount of money that person wanted from the government. You understand? In some instances, the government has not even paid those people for the land that have been hijacked. I mean, let's not lie ourselves. There are pieces of land that have been hijacked in this country.
Yeah, but also there is something that we don't see as well. The Minister of Police has denounced some of those issues to say that if there is evidence, then this evidence should be something that is also pertained in the numbers as well. You see him coming through as well to say that there is no clear picture, there is no clear data that says to us that there are people that are targeted here. If there are cases, then those cases would be isolated cases, but you can't create a picture that this is something that would see the country then being isolated and viewed in a sense that there's genocide when there's no genocide here. It's generalizing in a sense here.
That's politics. You have to create a picture. You have to influence.
Yeah, but if there are cases that are isolated, we must say that there are isolated cases that are playing themselves out, instead of saying that there is a picture that you're painting here. That would be a general picture of something that is happening when it's not.
Look, it's so unfortunate that in South Africa, truly, we've always seen all the white people as evil. We've never given them a chance, to be very honest. Imagine even us during the apartheid time, and we went to other countries. We also had to go out and seek support.
I don't think that is true, because we have given white people a chance. When we transcended into democracy, we saw this olive branch. We saw the TRCs play themselves out. We saw all of these issues around a rainbow nation and social cohesion here. There are policies. Even the president, when he spoke about the people that left here, at some point he described them as cowards, because he was saying there is a country that we are building here. We may not be a perfect country, for instance, and there may be those issues playing themselves out, but we are a country that would embrace blacks and white equally, looking at what we are pushing for, which is the building of a nation.
Look, Katlego, let's be honest. For Forum to be selling whatever story they have sold to the world, right, to whatever that they have mentioned, they did not only mention the issue of land expropriation. They've complained about many things, corruption, and here in South Africa, I think we seem to be worshipping corruption instead of us being angry right now. We are not angry because we are expecting white people to take these kind of things the way we take it.
Yeah, we may not be angry, but then if issues are playing themselves out as they're playing themselves out, crime is crime. We should call we should call it out as it is a crime. But what I'm still at here, Rolex, would be the fact that with all of this issue, with this picture that has now been created here, we saw President Cyril Ramaphosa saying at some point, he even had a phone call with Donald Trump to say that, listen, President president to president, I am telling you that this is something that is not happening. It's not a clear cut and paste and cut that we can say that there's genocide here. It's okay. You are allowed to open a refugee status and give them refugee status. But I'm saying to you that this is something that is not happening here. So as we're looking at this meeting, Rolex, that is to play out this week, I want us to go back there and give others an opportunity as well, because there are others that are on the line. So what is it that we take there that would say to us that these relations will then be salvaged after this meeting? They said there are a lot of people that would talk about even issues to say it's beyond this genocide narrative. It has to do with the ICJ and the likes. Do we see then this meeting playing itself out as a bargain between the two nations?
All right, look, let me tell you, number one, it is South Africa that must first make sure that they don't lose the relationship that we have with America. We need to protect whatever investment those people have brought into this country. We need to make sure that, no, we can't just let it go just like that, because other people think that, no, America can go tomorrow immediately there's China. You understand? I think people must refrain from having such thoughts, because to build a relationship, it's not easy. South Africa and America have been having a long time relationship, and it's just unfortunate that us as black government, we have failed to maintain the kind of business relationship that do us had, which at some point a rand was equal to $1. So it is us who have been regressing instead of moving forward, because we are entertaining a lot of corruption in this country. We are not developing this country to greater heights. For you to have a better life, you must be an ANC member, which right now the ANC has. Now I'm taking you to ICJ. They are. I don't know if they are rumors or if they are facts that they have taken money from Iran, which is not a good friend of America, and then you are taking a friend of America into the ICJ, and then you expect America to just look at you and say, no, we are afraid of you. Do you think America can look at us and say, we are afraid of you, South Africa? I mean, come on, let's stop playing.
So we go in there realistically in our approach, but at the same time, we try salvage as much as we can.
Look, it's you who need the jobs that have been created by Americans here. You really need them. You need it's America that comes in here and buy stuff, goods.
Yeah.
I mean, if you say no, those who think they can do without America, are they willing to live without WhatsApp tomorrow? Are they living without? Are they willing to live without the internet? Because those are American companies.
Yeah.
So if you don't buy American face, then if you remove the American IT infrastructure, do you have it?
I hear you, Rolex. Rolex, thank you very much, man, for the call. Rolex calling us there from Rustenburg, and you hear Rolex saying here that there's a lot that is on the line here. We need to go into that meeting with that in mind, but saying as well that there's a lot that is happening in the country than what meets the eye, and we need to be realistic about that. It was interesting for him to hear from him that really, when you look at it, if Donald Trump was to open this to everybody, then would have seen a lot of people move out of South Africa. Do you reckon that would have been the case? Let's hear from you on 0861 987 000. The line's still open, and Lindiwe is still here with us, just going into some of these developments as we throw forward to the week that is to come, where the news are concerned. And Dede Jabu, you're calling us from Mamelodi. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Katlego, and good morning to Lindy.
Good morning,
and
sir.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you know, Katlego, there are three issues that I want to quickly address, but the first one is this one of the president's visit to the United States. Yeah, and from where I'm sitting, I strongly believe that it will yield some positive results from where I'm sitting. The only problem that I have is that our president is going to the U.S. from an inferior position. And let's firstly look at the two characters that will be meeting. Both of them, they are business people. They are not politicians. Yeah, Donald Trump is an economist and is a businessman. And Cyril Ramaphosa, we know very well that politically is not strong as he is business-wise. So if they go there with the mentality of discussing business, I think they will gradually get somewhere. And which I suspect is what is going to happen there. And the other issue is that I heard Lindiwe telling us that the people who will be going there is one of the ministers, is Stian Hazen.
Yes.
Which is very good because she is the Minister of Agriculture, and that is where the biggest problem is. And I was listening to Stian Hazen in that agriculture in Gaza. And then what Stian Hazen was saying, that is exactly all of us in South Africa are saying, that there is no genocide in South Africa. And then the expropriation issue, I think he outlined it very well. So for him, Cyril, he should be actually flanked by people of Stian Hazen's character. And then the other one, I think, is that organization of agriculture, which is Agri-SA, which also they are denying that there is genocide in South Africa. They even said they don't even know the 49 people. They are not anywhere in their, in their list. And all of that, and they've even spoken to other agriculture organizations, asking each other. They are still even inquiring who actually came with the issue of genocide and who is behind that. They know nothing about that, including AfriForum itself. So, in other words, the president should have flanked himself with those people, the chairperson of Agri-SA as well. For them, actually, they must be the ones who are telling the Americans that here we are representing farmers of South Africa. And this is the situation, this is where we are. You know. But from where I'm sitting, I think it will yield positive results if they address it from a business point of view. Yeah, because politics, we know that the other one is a racist, obviously. You know? Yeah, we know very well that he is a racist and he will never change. He's a narcissist, and one of their characters is that they never change. They remain like that.
No, it does look like strategically we go in there having done our homework, having learned. I know maybe we even borrowed from a script of Ibrahim Rasool as well in terms of what he got in there. I'm hoping that soberly that's how we are approaching this one. And you're right to say that we see these balances. I see Minister of Trade is there as well. He will speak his part in terms of how then the department trade to trade relations would have to go here. Agriculture, it will have to do with the farmers as well. International relations, Ronald Lamola, it becomes important, the ICJ matter. So he will have to also come through in there to kind of give us a sense of how we are willing to salvage as much as we can here. And the president, he will have to charm as much as he can here and speak about and just praise Donald and do what he has to do here. Business-wise, you're right to say we'll need to see a lot on the move here. But I wanted to check in with you around what was raised by Rolex earlier on here, Ndete Jabu, to say that with a lot of issues that are playing themselves out in the country right now, if he was to say Donald Trump, he's opening that status to a lot of people, do you reckon that there would be black people taking up that opportunity as well?
No, I don't think so. I totally disagree with that. I don't agree with that. Yeah, because, if we take the very same stance, because I always maintain that we can copy even from a narcissist like Donald Trump, who can copy certain things. Because one of his motto is that he wanted to make America great again. And if we take the very same position that he has taken, and then that makes that very much attractive, and we have a bargaining power not only with America, with other nations as well, because America is not the only country in the world. So black people must start taking pride in their individual sense, and then self-reliance must be the order of the day, because that is what will make us appealing. Because to be quite honest with you, even if we have our president going there, it's not for the first time another president goes to another country.
Yeah.
It's not for the first time, Katlego. There's nothing special about it. It is just something that happens all the time. So the only thing that we need to do, we must make South Africa great again and start sorting domestic issues so that we become attractive not only to America, but to the whole world. Yeah, and I strongly maintain that black people can do better in South Africa. Yeah, they can do better, and they are already there. It's just that the issue that we are faced with are these domestic issues whereby crime has taken its toll, and it's very much inconducive to operate in the country without being disturbed because of criminality that is happening.
Yeah.
So I believe that Donald Trump is not a problem. And he doesn't owe us anything. He doesn't owe us anything if they go there with a business mind, because that is exactly what we are all about now. And leave politics out of this thing.
So we basically look at the deals, you know what I mean, in terms of trade relations, but more than the political relations here.
Exactly, because all of those investments, these other IT companies, which are automobile and all these other things that are happening in this country, they are not withdrawn. The only thing that needs to be done is to just amplify the relations that we have with America. And we are not even sure. We talk about the ICJ issue, Israel and Palestine issue, as if it's the one that is creating it. We are not sure about that. It was not explicitly said to us that, no, it's because of the ICJ, that is why we are doing this to you. The only thing that actually I saw Katlego creating a problem, it started with Ibrahim Rasool, with his own comments that he made. And that is why he found himself where he is now, But I trust that because diplomatically, our president liked doing things diplomatically, So I believe that actually something will come out of that meeting. I don't even think of a Zelensky-Trump, drama there, It's just that we are talking about it because we are talking about an unpredictable character. But if we go there, having the right frame of mind, focusing on the issues at hand, bread and butter issues, then I think we are going to get something out of that. And then secondly, which is an issue, which is an issue that actually annoys me very much. And it's the issue of our prosecution in the country.
Yeah.
I don't know what is happening there. And I'm talking exactly about the Kwekwe matter that was withdrawn.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about Omotoso. The list is endless, Katlego.
Yeah.
I mean, why did they withdraw that matter? They should have left it open. They should have left it open if actually there's an effort that they are going to give to that. Because a child was raped there, and there's a whole lot of issues that goes around that issue, and all of a sudden they just withdraw the matter. There's something fundamentally wrong about our prosecution in this country. And here comes the Omotoso issue, which I'm very confused from where I'm sitting. Omotoso left South Africa now.
Yeah.
He left South Africa. And then in another country, you will never leave a country under that cloud.
Gosh.
Never. It will never happen. So in other words, they are going to start another process again in some other time to come with extradition issues like the Guptas and Bushiri, you know. How are they going to bring him back here if they found evidence, something to work on? Do they think he's going to come back here? Why are they doing this?
Yeah.
Why is the prosecution doing this?
Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one. I saw a lot of people. I think they appeared in Parliament last week, and there were calls for Shamila Batoyi to bear responsibility for some of these issues, failures here. Members of Parliament were not impressed in terms of how that division has gone here, saying even in this Omotoso matter, for him to be found not guilty, that was just an indictment on her office as well, saying maybe she would need to also be liable for failures in this regard. You are right to say that there are a lot of issues that are playing themselves out that speak to advent failures here. The Kwekwe matter as well. We saw a country outraged only for us to find ourselves here.
You know, Katlego, we can't have an apologetic NPA director, when issues like this arise. I'm very worried about the head of the NPA because most of the time when I listen to her, she's just apologizing about all what has happened. She doesn't tell us exactly what should happen because the Omotoso matter, they had enough time. After he was acquitted, they had enough time to deal with it, to make an appeal, to do all the things. All of a sudden, when he was arrested last week, that's when actually they are telling us about an appeal and all of that. And it appears to me that they are not talking to the Home Affairs. They are not even talking to the other relevant departments in as far as the Omotoso issue is concerned.
Yeah.
I can say what about loyile or mutaba loyile and never loyile.
Yeah.
It's very confusing, Katlego. Very, very confusing because other people are advocating Omotoso must go. Must go for what?
Because he hasn't fully accounted. I don't think that if they were say that the matter is being put on appeal, then one would expect for that to play itself out before he can be released or something. Like I was just confused about how this whole Omotoso matter played itself out.
Katlego, let me tell you in my parting shot, I wouldn't be surprised if, because I see them opening themselves up to unnecessary litigation. I wouldn't be surprised if Omotoso abasuwa. Even abasuela.
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised because that is exactly what is happening here. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the call. Let me bring you back in Lindiwe. The issues that he touched on here, but I want us to close this one here. The visit by the president into the United States and come back to this one here, Omotoso, and then there's Mandla who's also on standby, who's on the line as well. When you listen to what they've said, I'm sure you heard what Rolex was saying as well in terms of where we find ourselves, where it all started, and the state of affairs in the country, even going to a point of saying that we need to go in there humbling ourselves because we need America more than it needs us. But you hear and Jabu taking a different approach as well here, to say that, I mean, there is that balance here in terms of who we are taking there, the delegation that we're taking there. We need to be business minded here, but at the same time, still stand firm on who we are and what we believe in as a sovereign state. So what do you make of these views, and how do you actually read into all of these issues playing themselves out where our G20 presidency is concerned?
All right, thanks. Katlego, I think I stand with the latter speaker, Ntate Jabu. He touched on something very important, and I think what we really want to see happening is the most important one on the agenda is the trade relationship. I think what we are seeking to achieve here is the stance on AGOA, which would expire in September, and we would want to see what would unfold based on that. And on our side, I think we would really expect a deal with Trump where we potentially involve trade-offs and other matters like the ICJ and trade arrangements, as well as the diplomatic relations. But however, it is unclear what specific concessions South Africa might be willing to make or take with what the U.S. is demanding in return. So I think that is just my stance in all of this.
Yeah, no, there's a lot that is really riding on this, and we'll wait and see, because there is that we are handing over our G20 presidency to the United States, and we are expecting that maybe this talks would see Donald Trump coming into the country to receive that handover when that summit sits later on in the year. Something that else that Jabu touched on here would be this issue around Timothy Omotoso, the televangelist. Over the weekend, we see him making a move. He's gone now. He's in his home country in Nigeria. We saw him traveling from OR Tambo, and a lot of people really also just worried about how this case played itself out. I mean, this is a matter that drags on from the year 2007, if I'm not mistaken, where he was facing all of these issues, all of these charges, and these were serious charges. You know, a lot of people were disheartened when that matter is actually 2017 when this all started, where he was first arrested there in 2017. The charges would include rape, human trafficking. There are young people that are involved here. These are serious matters, serious issues. It was bare. It played itself out. He was found not guilty. You hear Ntate Jabu saying this really speaks so much about our justice system and the gaps that exist there. What do you read into where we find ourselves here? And according to you, Lindiwe, was he supposed to go?
Okay, my stance on this, firstly, I really wanted to understand the role of the NPA in our country. And allow me to just quote something here. It says, the mission of the NPA, guided by the Constitution, is to ensure justice and victims of crimes by prosecuting without fear, favor, or prejudice. And I think that Jabu has mentioned, the NPA has really failed us in terms of this case. We had almost 8 years trying to get him found guilty of the charges that have been put against him, but he walks away as a free man. And when he was arrested for the second time, we know that it was in relation to the Immigrant Act, where the system said it was a technicality matter that has happened here. And I think it was really fair that he leaves, because he has been really put out as an undesirable person by the Home Affairs. So I think this really just says that for him to be banned for the next 5 years is really what he deserved. But more especially, I'm looking into the victims that put out their stories. And now this is what's happening. Justice is not served for them. Is it really fair?
Sure. It's just a tricky one, really a tricky one, because at the same time, we see this 5-year ban that we hear he's under a 5-year ban. One wonders what happens after that ban. Does he come back? And you hear Ntate Jabu as well saying the way that we conducted ourselves, we've opened up avenues of even being sued here, in terms of how then one would say, as a country, we flouted our very same laws of of the land that we've set for ourselves in dealing with such matters. Reckon that then there should be lessons that are learned here, even from the Home Affairs Department, one would say, from the NPA's end as well, and how then we treat issues of immigration, because it does look like we on matters immigration, we always are confused around how we deal with these matters. People were saying from the get-go, when he was found not guilty, the expectations would have been that he gets into a van, he's taken straight to Lindiwe Repatriation Center, and then he's taken out of the country. That did not happen. There was a celebration. There was a hero's welcome here of someone that then would have said that if you are found to have broken the law, to have been arrested, isn't it that some of these laws, if you were in the country as an asylum seeker, there are certain issues, laws that you don't need to flout. If you are arrested, for instance, then that should see them revoking your status, or that putting your status in jeopardy. It does look like there are lessons that need to be learned, especially around how we handle matters immigration.
I definitely agree with you, Katlego, because I think there's really loopholes in our constitutions in terms of the Immigration Act, seeing that this has been happening in our country, but we really can't find our feet in terms of where do we really stand with matters such as this, where someone who's from the outside comes into South Africa, does such crucial crimes, but then they are not acquitted or anything like that. They are not convicted, actually. So, yeah, it's really one of the loopholes that we find. Even in our Criminal Procedure Act, there's really something that needs to be looked into.
Yeah, it's a lot, because also disheartening would be that Lindiwe, at the center would be victims that are genuinely seeking for justice here, that would be, re-traumatized when there's no justice here, or when they feel robbed by a sense of justice, then they find themselves really, disheartened, in a state of despair, because of the fact that there are those issues that were not adhered to. A lot of, members of Parliament from last week even talking about how we need to look into the affairs of the National Prosecuting Authority, the National Director of Public Prosecutions herself, in terms of her role where all of these issues are concerned, because heads at some point have to roll.
Most definitely. I think what is important is that Shamila needs to take accountability of really what has been happening in our country, in terms of also with the Katlego case that has been happening. That is really disheartening to see such a young child experiencing such things, and the case is just not being able to be fully executed to a point where the suspects are really brought to justice. This is really disheartening.
Yeah, just a reminder to our listeners at home that we're still in conversation with Lindiwe. Lindiwe is joining us this morning as a freelance journalist, helping us just break down some of these developments. Let's go to Mandla, who's calling in from Soshanguve. Mandla, you want to talk about what was raised earlier on by, I think it was Bushielo, who was talking about the cars and some of the issues, criminal activities that play themselves out. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Katlego. How are you?
I'm okay. How's it, Mandla?
I'm well, my brother. Yeah, no, I concur with what the gentleman has just said, Zambezi car dealers, those people are very dodgy, my brother.
Yeah.
They are selling cloned cars.
Yeah.
And the police, they know. Because there are some guys in the townships which are cloning cars specifically for Zambezi. Car dealers,
How does the car get cloned, Munamandla?
The car gets cloned. I can go to SMD and buy a wrecked car, or what you can call a accident damage car.
Buy it via auction of some sort.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what I need there is only the paper and the text. And there are some numbers on the shell of a car that they cut them out and re-weld them. There are people who are doing that specifically.
Yeah.
ask yourself, a person who owns 30 taxis, how much is a taxi, Katlego? Some of the taxis are even closed, my brother. They are even cloned. So, this thing of cloning cars is very complex. It is very complex. To a point that these guys, they even work with white people. You remember, in our minds, sometimes as big people, you'll hear a person now right. These guys, they go to them and then do change of ownership. And when you buy that car, it will be as if it is coming from that particular person. While it has just been used as an agent to change the car papers, when you are going to buy it, it will be reflecting Mr. Silias or Mr. Pantoner or whoever. So the dealerships in car dealerships in Zambezi, that's what they are doing. And even at the pounds, at the police pounds, are you aware that there are guys who can get a car there specifically for it to be stripped for parts? Another thing which our government should do, they should regulate the scrapyards guys, the guys who are doing panel beating and spray painting, because even some of them, they are contributing to the car hijinks that we have in this country.
No, it's a big deal. But one thing that I was even interested in, if you listen to what Bushielo was saying, I asked to say, if the police are asking you and they're saying this car is stolen, and you tell them, well, I bought it go Zambezi, why aren't they going go Zambezi bona self to close this dealership? So it's as if like crime is normalized. If you and I know when go Zambezi, that's where it's going down, then why is it that the police, the authorities, these things, I was even saying that you see them Kodi, a TV show, it's a reality now. You'd see people being run around, people being chased, get the camera, and you're asking yourself, where are the police? And they're supposed to be chasing these criminals. If then they are criminals and there's an issue here, they know where these dealerships are. Well, why aren't they going there then Mandla?
They are benefiting from these dealerships, my brother. If we are in Pretoria, we all know the people who ask who are in Pretoria. We all know that if you want to buy a car, don't go and play around in Zambezi. Unless if you are from Mpumalanga, Limpopo, no KZN, then you can go and play in Zambezi. But as who are in Pretoria, you know that you don't go and buy a car in that size, unless if you are sure of your story of how to identify a car which has been cloned and a car which has not been cloned. They even sell written off cars, rebuild them. Those cars data, it will show you that this car has been in an accident, it has been written off.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a big problem, because then it means this crime has been normalized now. I could say, but there was a point where someone suggested here on the open line, Bandla, and they were like, maybe we need to start rotating the police. If maybe they're getting their monies from these dealerships, don't you think that maybe we can rotate them, put them straight in Nkandla or right in Beckville there, take you from Sosh straight into Beckville, take you from Sosh straight into Matatiele, take someone from Matatiele, bring them this side? Don't you think that maybe that can help us here? Because criminals are becoming familiar with the police. The police now are familiar with the people on the ground. It looks like it's a party now.
It is a party, Mr. Katlego. Most of these police are in the pockets of criminals. Yeah. Yes, you can rotate them, but we need to change the criminal justice system in this country. That's the only way when we'll benefit. Give these guys who are in law enforcement departments, even the security officials, these guys, they know, they give them a suitable punishment. If ever you are found to be involved in such shady dealing, you'll be punished because you've taken an oath, But now you are helping the criminals to do what they are doing. Yeah? Even our jails, they are just like a hotel. I can call a person inside the prison right now, to show how corrupt our country is.
Sure. Yeah, no.
We're just a laughing stock of the whole world.
Mandla, it's a lot. Mandla Marakela Wagamfetu, thank you very much. Maybe one day we'll get it right. I don't know when, but yeah, it's so disheartening. Thank you very much for the call, Mandla.
Thank you very much, my brother. I doubt we'll get it right. With the party that are there. I doubt, my brother.
You take it straight to politics.
Right. It's very hard, my brother.
Yeah, no, it is. Mandla calling us there from Soshanguve here that is really worried here about issues of crime. Lindiwe, this is the day-to-day. People are really finding themselves dealing with this. The Mandla's reaction here was sparked by a call from Bushielo earlier on, who was talking about issues of crime, cars being hijacked, and just raising awareness around some of these issues as well. It does then give us a bad name. It does. Crime in the countries is out of control. How do we actually start even approaching it, Lindiwe?
Sure. Our efforts to addressing crime is that the FAPS has implemented various initiatives to combat crime using even technology to try and mitigate such efforts. We have also seen the government also establishing programs to try and address the root of causes of crime, such as poverty and inequality, because we know that some of these issues are the reasons why people do crime. And overall, crime still remains a significant issue in South Africa. But I think what is important is for the South African Police Department to actually strengthen its regulations and their manpower on ground, because we've also seen policemen being either hijacked or killed or murdered, basically, all because of they trying to do what is right for South Africa. But this is what we are seeing right now.
Sure, there's a lot. There's a lot that is happening here. But just a reminder to our listeners at home that we're in conversation this morning with Lindiwe. Lindiwe is joining us here to help us break down some of these developments in terms of the news space. There's a lot that we're expecting as well as we go into the week. And we already spoke at length about this trip by the president going into the United States, and would like to hear your thoughts as well on 0861 987 000. So yeah, I wanted us to also talk about developments coming out of Gaza and look at some of these, efforts around just salvaging and trying to bring about peace here. We see Israel saying here that it's open to a deal here that includes the ending of the fighting there in Gaza. Are we somewhere closer to seeing somewhat of the ceasing of fire? This coming through at a time when we even mentioned it to say that we as South Africa mounted a case against what is happening there at the Strip. It doesn't look like our cases, come through with somewhat of a reprieve for the people that are looking towards, or finding themselves navigating these issues. We see now Israel saying it is open to somewhat of a deal here that would include the ending of the fights there in Gaza. Lindiwe?
Most definitely. In a statement yesterday by the Prime Minister, Benjamin, he said that their negotiation team in Doha is working so hard for a possibility of a deal. So in terms of this, we really see what has been happening in terms of the Gaza and Israel case. They really want to achieve the war's objectives, meaning by releasing all hostages that have been happening across the country there, and also the defeat of Hamas.
It's a lot, because when you look at how this matter has played itself out, people would say long overdue. There was a point whereby there was the seizing of a fire, they were releasing these hostages, but that was short-lived. How do we actually approach it, or how do we see them looking at approaching it this time around, that it would be something that sticks here and it's not short-lived?
Right, with the Prime Minister having to oppose the ending of the war without Hamas, with its total defeat, they're really trying to a perspective of handling over its weapons. So with the talks that are happening in Doha, we know that there aren't any preconditions from both sides. So I think from this side, there's really great flexibility that we are seeing with these negotiations. So I think this might be the breakthrough that they've been looking for.
A lot of people were looking at that 2-month ceasefire as something that would come through to help them be here. Because as you see all of these issues playing themselves out, you see a lot of people watching, how then we see Zelensky as well approaching this battle around Ukraine as well. A lot of people just saying that there's a lot of bad that is happening there. Hence, you see South Africa opting to always just take a neutral stance and calling for a dialogue where some of these issues are concerned. It does look like it's now going back to a dialogue because we find ourselves here, even with the what is happening in Doha. You'd hear a lot of people saying that it should have been that, instead of people opting to more or less push for the firing and pushing for the missiles and everything else and the attacks. You see people saying that this time around a dialogue should be championed here, similar to what we've seen happening even where Ukraine is concerned.
Most definitely. I think this talk is one that has been happening, and we really want to see that with Israel having to launch a ground offensive in Rafah with the aim of destroying Hamas infrastructure. These are some of the key developments that have been happening. And with the UN's final statement in the summit, we saw that they urged the international community to exert pressure to end the bloodshed.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. I mean, also when you look at what is happening here, it still concerns would be about humanitarian aid, right? You'd hear concerns still being about hospitals that are being targeted here, being attacked. I think at some point we saw the Gaza Health Ministry saying that at least 3,193 people have been killed here since Israel resumed these strikes on the 18th of March. There was a little bit of a comfort from those that are there that would say that the ceasing of fires would see lives also safeguarded here. But we see as all of these issues playing themselves out, there are lives that are being lost, there are casualties in the process.
Most definitely, as you have mentioned with the health ministry that is happening, Israel is accused of laying siege in Indonesian hospitals. And this just tells you that there is a state of panic and confusion that is prevailing at this point. And the shutdown of this hospital puts all public hospitals in the North Gaza now out of service.
Sure. There's a lot as well in terms of the hostages here. Do we see this deal that maybe they're looking at here, starting with the hostages? Because we hear that there are a whole lot of hostages here. And I think there were numbers that were being touted here. There were 251 hostages taken during the Hamas October 7th attack there. And there was another one that was triggered here. I think there was saying that there were 57 that were remaining in Gaza, including 34 of the military crew that would form part of those that were caught in this crossfire. So do we see them, I think more than anything else here, the beginning point of these negotiations in the past would be centered around the hostages?
Most definitely, with the hostages that have been happening, and for us to really find a stance with this, and so that the negotiations can go smoothly. The deal's success really depends on the implementation and the ability of both sides to adhere to their terms. The international community, including the USA, Egypt, as well as Qatar, will play a crucial role in ensuring that the deal's success is facilitated at a long term to resolve this conflict.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, all of these interesting parties, at some point, people were even thinking that Donald Trump would be there in person as well, because he had taken somewhat of an interest here. But we see all of these issues flowing from the Prime Minister here, Benjamin Netanyahu's office, who was saying that even at this very moment, the negotiation team in Doha is working to exhaust every possibility for a deal here, whether according to the Wyckoff's framework or as part of ending the fighting here, referring here to the U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff, who has been involved in the previous discussions here. So you see them also finding people that would be transparent here, finding locations that would be transparent here in terms of ensuring that there's little influence, none whatsoever, in getting to the tail end of some of these developments, where they would want really for somewhat of a deal to be struck as we see this meeting playing itself out. I want us to end it here, Lindiwe, by looking at this issue around the homelessness, unpacking South Africa's homelessness crisis here. As much as we often hear the quarterly labor force survey playing themselves out, and we see the number of the unemployed being registered, and them telling us and giving us a sense of where we find ourselves in the unemployment crisis, we'd see that there is a crisis here of the homelessness. During COVID-19, this was stuck. A lot of people worried about, the homeless. How are we going to treat the homeless here? But we hear as well that really this can also be attributed to family breakdowns or poverty that have fueled homelessness in recent years. It does look like city by city, Kasi by Kasi, town to town, there is someone that is homeless here. It is somewhat of a crisis.
Most definitely. And I think as someone who is always commuting to the city of Johannesburg, you always see young people and people like on the streets, under the bridges, having to be distorted because they don't have a shelter that will really accommodate them. And this is one of the ongoing and increasing crisis in South Africa that involves thousands of vulnerable children as well, where we see them fleeing from broken homes, some of them having to experience abuse, poverty, and system failures.
And also when you look at it, it does look like, the numbers are increasing here. A lot of people, I think, if we take it back to even during the time of COVID-19, the issue and the challenge were around the safe spaces, the safe houses, the shelters, to say, do we see those as well? Do we see infrastructure doubling, tripling, as we see the numbers of those that are vulnerable here? These would be the numbers that would come through even from Statistics South Africa, that would give us data, that would give us a sense of who is in the Johannesburg CBD, who is in the Pretoria CBD, where we locate them, and how they find themselves here. Stats SA here are saying the number of homeless people in the country more than quadrupled between 1996 and 2022, from 13,135 to 55,719. Amongst them here, we're talking about children under the age of 18. They account for about 7%. Highlighting the growing vulnerability of even minors that find themselves caught up in this crisis here. So do we see infrastructure coming through, the rollout as well, the shelters, as we see these numbers doubling here? Do we see the government coming through with these safe spaces?
I don't think there is really a double of infrastructure or anything like that. And I think this is where government needs to collaborate with NGOs, because we have NGOs that are trying to mitigate the situation by trying to bring in interventions that will try to assist these children that you have really highlighted. And I think one of the consensus of 2022 has highlighted that there is over 45% of homeless children that are under the age of 15 living in these shelters. I think one of the most important things is where we see government coming in with skills development for these kids, coming in with mentorship as well as support and placement in schools, making sure that there is really significant support in terms of psychological support, so that even when a child comes from a broken family, they don't really resort to fleeing their home, but to really try and understand the situation that is happening and how we can really try to mitigate the situation by giving them counseling and skills development and all of those things.
And also when you look at it, then it does, Lindiwe, speak to families, what happens in our households. I see a lot of this attributed to perhaps the trauma, the dysfunction, the toxicity that would happen here, the abuse even that may come through in their homes that may impact others. You see, the various reasons. Others may have left home, others may have been kicked out, disowned. So there are various of these stories, but it does speak to a greater societal challenge that starts in the home.
Most definitely, there are intertwined factors that really push these young people to leave their homes, and some of these could relate to family-related issues, could also be substance abuse that is happening in the household, can also be conflict amongst parents or that relationship between a child and a parent. That could also be one of the factors that really affect children to having to flee their homes, and also fall part of the system failures that we are seeing.
But also at the same time, I'm just thinking here of the vulnerability that one finds themselves in here. We see that the modus would be survival. The survival becomes the game. It becomes the game for each and every one of them, because you're not protected as much as you would have been protected when you were in the home here. We hear as well a lot of issues around where most of them would end up here. We are told that according to the 2022 census, it revealed here that 45.7% of homeless children under 15 were living in shelters, while 26.9% were found in abandoned buildings, in vehicles. So it does say as well that they do find themselves, as much as you would be maybe running away from home because of the issues that are playing themselves there. There are greater issues that you may be confronted with, looking at the fact that we hear that most of them here, 26.9%, were found not in shelters but in abandoned buildings, in vehicles. So you are in an unsafe and unstable condition here. You may even be victimized.
Most definitely. I think also with the survival of the fittest kind of mentality that comes with living on the streets, it really also has to deal with your mental capacity as well, to say, I am faced with this problem that I'm faced with right now, but how do I then try to make sure that I come up on top? And this is where you see them really trying, also killing each other there. Some of them really going the mouth that they really have to resort to crime for them to survive, to show that namni boss la. You get what I'm saying? So some of these things really show that a lack of a stable housing and support really does impact a child, to making sure that they really have a distorted life, that they really resort to crime. And these are some of the challenges that we are seeing in South Africa.
Yeah, no, there's a lot here. And also when you look at it, we often hear everybody taking it back to politics, to say it is the politics of the day. We did mention that there are, we don't find a lot of these, issues around, or shelters playing themselves out as they should. Infrastructure and the gaps and vulnerability is the order of the day. We know very well that even now you hear people talking about gender-based violence and femicide. They're intertwined. You hear people saying a lot of people would even leave their homes because of these issues that find themselves out, to only be victimized again out there by those that would take advantage of victims in this regard. So it is an issue here, as we often hear everything else being taken and drawn to politics here. Do we at least see people still basing and pushing and pinning their hopes on the changes of God's, the new administration. You hear a lot of people even talking about now the GNU. When the numbers, the unemployment numbers were released, others were saying maybe this is an opportunity for the GNU to be coming through and setting out itself in terms of how it comes with plans to close the gaps that have existed in the past 31 years. Could this be another one of those opportunities? The politicians, where are they when all of these issues are playing themselves out? I mean, we drive past homeless people almost every day of our lives. This is supposed to worry someone.
Most definitely. I think the government really plays a huge part in this. And when you mention the GNU, this is where we see political parties coming together to ensure that they try to adopt social welfare as well as law enforcement to try and mitigate the crime and violence that we see that comes with being homelessness. And social economic inequalities also plays a huge part in this, that where we see a substantial amount of inequality contributes to crime and homelessness. And the role of the GNU in addressing this is to really look at the policy reforms where the GNU can implement policy reforms to address the root of causes of crime, such as poverty and unemployment. You really touched on this as well. And also increasing funding for these social welfare programs, as well as the law enforcement agencies, as well as community development initiatives, and also with collaborations. Government can really try to foster relationships between civil society organizations, community groups, is to make sure that there's a response to this homelessness issue.
Yeah, no, there's a lot that needs to be done here, and we are going into the local government elections. So one would say that as much as we speak about the local government, we do then really find ourselves speaking about, at the heart of it would be homes, would be local government, and I guess this would be the issues that will need to be canvassed by the powers that be when they go about their campaigns, Lindiwe.
I think local government elections plays a crucial role in addressing home issues in South Africa. So when we really look into going there to cast our votes and all of that, the local government elections really have to focus on selecting councillors who will oversee local government affairs, including housing, infrastructure development, as well as service delivery. And addressing some of these issues in homes is that to elect representatives that can engage with communities to understand the housing needs and priorities, and also having to partner with private developers, NGOs, and other stakeholders to ensure that there is indeed delivery in housing projects.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. So let's hope that indeed we see proper planning. We see some of these things really, really weighing on the hearts of the powers that be, and them planning and in line with addressing some of these issues. As much as we see that these numbers are continuing to play themselves out, the numbers have quadrupled. This is something that we're hearing here, and this should worry the powers that be. Lindiwe, I want us to leave it here for this morning, but really, really appreciate you coming through, giving us your time, extending it as well in terms of some of these issues. We are going to see a busy week, I suspect, here, but you have started us off. We really appreciate it.
Most definitely. Thank you so much, Katlego, for the time and also inviting me to share some of my insights on these issues. And I really look forward to Wednesday's issues that will rise up to that U.S. trip with President Ramaphosa. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. We are waiting with bated breath. But again, something that is of importance that just came to my mind now, and I'm like, yay, we really should have touched on this, would be the budget. Budget 3.0, Lindiwe. It is also playing itself out. You tend to even forget about it because of a whole lot of these noises that have been playing themselves out. But on Wednesday, all eyes will be on the Finance Minister, Inoko Dongwana, who will also be giving us a sense of the third time lucky, if he's lucky. And this time around, we won't find ourselves with the postponement or even the courts playing into this budget.
Most definitely. I think this is really the first time in South Africa where we're seeing a budget having to be refined 3 times. And as you put it, regarding budget 3.0, I think what we are really looking into is that we want to see a budget that is going to change, and especially with the VAT issue that was really coming through. I think this is one of the things that we really want to see coming from this budget that is going to be redefined, and then we'll see what is expected from there.
Yeah, no, there's a lot that we can expect, and I'm hoping that we'll see. I know very well that tomorrow we'll see the EFF, not tomorrow, today, Monday we'll see the EFF marching to the National Treasury. So on the day, we know very well that there are workers that will be marching as well there in Cape Town. So the pressure is on. Hopefully, this will be the last one for the year 2025, and we'll see the country just at work here. Lindiwe, before we let you go, who are you on social media? How do we connect people your way?
All right, on X, I am at Kmo Miss, and on Instagram, I'm Miss Kmo. That is where you'll find me.
Awesome. Kmo Miss Kmo. Thank you very much for coming through, Lindiwe, and for giving us your time.
Thank you so much. Have a good morning as well. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah, really, really appreciate it. Lindiwe Rasemetsa coming through. They're helping us make sense of some of these developments, some of these news. I told you that in the day that is today, we'll see the EFF marching to National Treasury there in Pretoria against the VAT. There's a lot that is on the go. Over the weekend, we saw the Patriotic Alliance. They too were demonstrating, or not even demonstrating. They held a rally there. I saw Patriotic Alliance leader Gayton McKenzie. He was addressing a rally there in the Nelson Mandela Bay. He was really taking all of these issues to Katlego, saying that as the Patriotic Alliance, they too are still relevant here. You should not count them out. I want us to really come through and listen in on what he said there, Gayton McKenzie. But remind you that the lines are still open. Let's talk about these issues. What are you expecting where the budget is concerned, where this meeting is concerned between the two presidents? But at the same time, there's a lot that is riding here as everybody else unpacks and makes sense of this issue around Timothy Omotoso, who is now then in Nigeria. I see there's a caller as well. I want us to break a bit. When you come back, we'll take the call and then we'll take you to Nelson Mandela